What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about something pretty important. So I dressed for the part, and also because why not? Thought I'd switch things up. Alright, so what we're going to be talking about is, should you rent or should you buy when it comes to your living situation? I hear this all the time. Should someone rent maybe an apartment or a house, or should someone just bite the bullet and take out a mortgage and actually buy a house? There's definitely good arguments for both sides, but the one thing that never lies is the numbers. So we're gonna jump onto the computer in a couple of seconds, and we're gonna look at different numbers so you could really figure out what is the better choice for you. Because at the end of the day, it really determines where you are geographically and how much money you have and what different real estate opportunities there are out there. I, for one, am living in my parents' basement. I'm 25 years old with a master's degree, living in my parents' basement. Why? It's because I live on Long Island, and the average house is about $500,000, and the average apartment is about $2,000 if you want a somewhat decent apartment. So because of both those things, I figured, let me just bunker down in here for a couple of years after college, build up some wealth, maybe wait for the coronavirus to destroy the housing market, which would help me actually, and then I'll move out. But I'm also keeping a close eye to the numbers when it comes to houses and apartments, because at the end of the day, I'm going to have to make that decision, whether I buy a house or I rent. So let's jump over to the computer and let's see exactly what I'm talking about so you can make the right decision when you're either buying or renting. Alright, so I live in Sayville, New York. It is a pretty expensive town, so what I'd recommend for you to do is when you're doing your research, check the town that you want to live in and compare the two, because depending on where it is, I know prices can be very different. If you're living on, say, Long Island, you're going to be spending a lot of money just to live there. But if you were to live in somewhere like upstate New York, it's still in the same state, but upstate New York, the prices are a third. I'm not even kidding. So if we look right here, Sayville, to rent in Sayville, it's $2,327. And to buy a house, a typical house in Sayville, is $490,000. Again, these are some bigger numbers compared to the rest of the country, but that's because we're on Long Island, and Long Island is priced higher. So that's why you got to do your own research here, but I'm going to show you exactly what to do. It was a simple search. I just Google searched what is the average house in Sayville, and I got this information. And then right here, I just typed in what is the average rent in Sayville, and I was able to get this information. So you may think, let's just compare the two numbers. As long as my rent is below $2,327, the house is the better option, right? Not always. There's different factors that you need to put into play, and this is what I'm going to show. So let's jump over to a mortgage calculator. Again, this is bankrate.com. You type this in. It's bankrate.com/calculator/mortgage calculators. I'll put this in the description. And you could choose the price of the home. So let's take this and put in that $490,000. All right. So we have that. Now we got to fill out an average down payment. So I just Google search real quick. Looks like the average down payment is around 12%. So use that data, whether it be higher or lower. So our average down payment is going to be around $58,000 for our $490,000 house. Length, let's say 30 years, and interest rate. I know interest rates are really low now. So right now this has 3.26. We will even go lower. We'll say 3% because I think we're getting close to that 3% range now. But again, you can put in all of the proper numbers for yourself. So after plugging that information in, we are under the amortization schedule, and this website's pretty cool because it shows you exactly what your remaining balance is, what the interest you're paying, and what the principal you're paying. The important thing with a house is for the first third of its lifetime, you're actually paying more to principal than you are interest. That's something important to look out for. You could see in this chart right here, the red line right there is higher than the green line. That red line is the interest that you're paying. The green line is the principal that you're paying off. Because if we scroll down, you can see right here, our monthly payment is $1,817. So right now you're thinking, okay, I'm buying a house, $500,000 house is better than an apartment in Sayville. We're not done yet. So our payment is $1,800. Our principal is only $739. Our interest is over $1,000. And if we scroll all the way down, you could see right here, June 23rd, 2027 is when we're paying more towards the principal than the interest. If we scroll all the way down, we could also see, even though this house was $490,000, we put $58,000 as a down deposit. So we only have to pay back $430,000 in principal. Our interest comes to over $200,000. So this almost $500,000 house, we end up having to pay $654,000 over the course of 30 years. And to make matters worse, right now you're thinking that $1,800 a month isn't as bad as the rent of $2,327, but the benefits of renting is you don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay property taxes. So this is averaging out to about $674 a month in property taxes alone. And then on top of that, you're gonna have to have homeowners insurance. That's averaging out, at least on this website, to $78. So total, you're paying $2,569 for this house, as opposed to if you were just rent, which is $2,327. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hold on. I'm contributing towards an asset, and the house is the absolute best asset that you could have. Well, that's not always true. In fact, a house is a very emotional purchase, and it's actually an awful asset. You could look up other videos. They will break down why a house is not a good asset, why it's more of a liability, and that's because it's not bringing any money into you. Right? Each month, you're not making money off your house if you're just living there by yourself. You're not maybe renting different sections of your house out. Maybe you have a basement you can rent out. If you're not doing any of that, you have a liability, not an asset. And that's because you have to pay towards interest every single month, and a big chunk of interest as well. And then on top of that, you have property taxes you have to pay. So even when your house is completely paid off, your house is still losing you money in the form of property taxes. And I know what you might be thinking, well, hey, I buy a $490,000 house today, in 30 years, it could easily be worth $600,000 or $700,000. So now you're thinking, great, I just made $200,000 just by living in a house for 30 years. That very well could happen depending on how the market is, but it's all about opportunity cost. The one thing you have to remember, and if we look right here, that down payment of $58,800 just to make this purchase, what could you have done with that money if you've instead decided to rent a place, right? If you were to rent that an apartment or a house for $2,327, you could have easily taken that $58,000 and put it into maybe an ETF, an index fund, or a mutual fund and let that grow. And as you can see right here, if you were to park that $58,800 in maybe an index fund, producing 10% a year, because that's the average that the market does each year, you could end up with over $1 million at the end of the day. So you're paying your rent of $2,300 a month, and you could have that $58,000 instead of buying a house as a down payment. You could put it in an index fund and have over $1 million after those 30 years are up. The chances of your house more than doubling in 30 years isn't as likely. And you gotta remember, you're not paying any kind of taxes on this. There's no property tax. There's no income tax when you're just keeping your money somewhere for a long period of time. Once that 30 years is up, yeah, you have to pay taxes on it when you take it out, but you're only paying capital gain taxes. You're not going to be paying income tax, which is a lot cheaper. So there's different things that you need to look at. There's a bunch of different variables you need to look at when you want to either rent or buy. And you might be leaning towards buying because you think that's the better investment, but that's not always the case. Now, I'm not saying rent for the rest of your life, because at the end of the day, when it comes to your living situation, that is a very emotional thing. And a house is an emotional buy. There's no better feeling than knowing you own a house. You have a better feeling than renting maybe an apartment or renting a house from someone. So I get that, but when it comes down to the sheer numbers, owning a house isn't always the better option. That's why you need to look at the opportunity cost, look at what different options you have, what the prices are in the market, what the interest rate is, your property tax, and if you were to buy a house, if you could maybe rent out a section of your house so it could actually be considered an asset and not a liability, or if you could get a house for a very low price, maybe a fixer-upper, and then when you fix it, you're appreciating your value, and then that could be a better investment than renting and then putting your money into an index fund. And if there's any other video you'd like to see from me, comment as well. Let me know what you want to see, and I'll be more than glad to make videos about that topic. All right, that's all I got for you. I hope that this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.